question from X Grogan. I can't believe I'm asking this, but what will it take for Woody to have his Dolan moment? What I mean by that is what will it take for Woody to stop meddling and allow football people to take over football operations? We see what's going on with the Knicks and to a lesser extent what Cohen is doing with the Mets by hiring David Stearns. You know more about this than I do, and I'm curious what it will take for Woody to see the light and let him focus on jersey updates and his Twitter engagement while he allows the right minds to make football decisions. I would not be optimistic that Woody Johnson is going to ultimately change who he is at this stage of his ownership. I will say that, I'll say this. I think the Jets have always been far too sensitive and care far too much about perception and media perception and even to an extent fan perception. I'm surprised and taken aback sometimes by some of the stuff that Woody will say publicly in both directions. I do think that him and the business operation components of the business have more of a voice than they should. I don't necessarily think they have the dominant voice. I think the dominant voice right now is a mix of Aaron Rodgers and Joe Douglas, to be candid. How much of that percentage is cut in each direction, I'm not sure. The reason that, and look, would I love if the Jets could just pick any owner we want and we could own the team or someone that everyone always wants a new owner, but it's probably never going to happen. It's not going to happen anytime soon. We already dealt with an interim owner and those were not successful years by any means. I try to hang on to the reality that the Jets have won under Woody Johnson's ownership. They've been to the AFC Championship game twice. They've been to the playoffs multiple times. They've had winning records with multiple different coaches. So it's not impossible. It's just been a very long time. And that's what I try to hold on to. He generally will spend money from what we've seen. Like, I know there's rumblings like it's a cash situation. You don't want to do this. Like, generally they've spent, you put the MetLife thing to the side, which is a more complicated conversation between the Jets and the Giants. Like, the Jets have nice facilities in Florham Park. It's not like you're hearing rumblings that the Jets are like a cheapskate organization like you hear sometimes with the Cardinals or some other places. But, expecting Woody to fully change who he is at this stage seems unlikely. Periodically we get different things. Like, we complain forever that we wanted this structure where the head coach reported to the GM and it wasn't the dual reporting into ownership. That was something that we used to talk about all the time. And they did do that on paper, but no one really seems to believe that is the case. And no one ever seems to hold Douglas accountable for Saleh. So I don't know how much of a difference that's ultimately made. So I'm tempering my expectations on Woody not being Woody, but I am trying to remind myself that the Jets have made the playoffs with Herm Edwards, Eric Mangini, and Rex Ryan all as their head coach, with Mike Tannenbaum and Terry Bradway as their GMs, and been on the cusp of a Super Bowl a couple times with Woody as their owner. So it's not impossible. And in any of those situations, Aaron Rodgers wasn't their quarterback.
Woody Johnson is 76 years old. He has owned the Jets for nearly a quarter of a century.
Man,
nothing's changing.
Yeah.
Whether you love it, hate it, whatever you think of it, you might be neutral to it, which I think you and I are more neutral. I definitely don't love it or like it. I know that. I think they hate. It's not for a lack of effort with Woody most of the time. It's bad decision making where he almost can't help himself, right? I mean, he's even hired people to make decisions for him. He just hired the wrong people. Yep. Remember the search firm situation?
Korn Ferry.
Yeah,
Korn Ferry and Charlie Casserly.
He's tried everything. They
really have tried everything in terms of consultants and quarterbacks.
They have tried. Think of it like this. Just since we've been adults, they have tried players, coaches, drill sergeants. They thought Gase was like a hotshot coordinator. He was a failed head coach, but that, once again, this is misevaluating the situation. Like you said, they have tried drafting a quarterback in the top 3 twice. They have tried veteran quarterbacks. They made the play for Kirk Cousins. They got Aaron Rodgers. He's not somebody that is stuck in one direction. He's failed in trying everything. And it is really hard to succeed in the NFL. There's no denying that. But for the Jets to be this bad this long, that's pretty tough, man. It's pretty tough. They've been this bad for this long that he's going to have to shoulder a lot of the blame. And for the people that are frustrated with ownership, I get it, right? So, and I think what Woody too, he's almost now at the point where he's been criticized for having too quick of a trigger. And now you almost wonder if it's gone the other way where now he's too patient.
Yeah.
Where we're going into this year, I don't think anybody thinks Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh are going to be here 3 years from now. I don't think anyone does. No. I think they're
you can't find one person who credibly thinks that.
No one credibly thinks that. They think that they'll be here as long as Rodgers is here, which feels like it has a ceiling of 2 years. So it's tough. I think number one, he's not changing, so that's not really worth discussing. I think that ultimately it's just about correcting bad decisions. I mean, where a lot of it started for me too is that the Jets should have never stayed in the Meadowlands. They should have never stayed in the Meadowlands.
We had our out. We were going to the Hudson Yards, baby.
West that side was of Manhattan, the thing our own stadium. When he bought the team, the West Side Stadium was the big deal. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be an expert on the West Side Stadium because the logistics of having football in Manhattan, a place that I've spent many days of my life in, it's hard to imagine. It would be really freaking cool, but it is hard to imagine.
Taking the ferry into tailgate.
But yeah, you almost wonder though, would the Jets be better off near Citi Field? In all seriousness, the fans of Long Island, where there's a lot of Jet fans, the fans in New York City, the fans in Westchester and above that, it's not a ridiculous place to drive to. Where the Meadowlands, it's not so much the location as much as it's in the middle of nowhere, without a doubt. And it always will feel like Giants country, no matter what. And the Jets have, beaten the Giants a lot in recent years. It doesn't matter at all. It's that the stadium is some of the biggest mismanagement of funds I've ever witnessed for how much it costs. It's a terrible stadium. Yep, everything about it, and people some people get a little sensitive to this. Probably because they go to games. I get it. But the bottom line is, all I ask you is just go anywhere else. Anywhere else. When I walked into Mercedes-Benz in Atlanta for the SEC championship a couple years ago, I felt like I was on a different planet that discovered football. I'm looking around. I'm like,